I know so much on how you got where you are, how you stepped on many people.
And that's the problem that I have with this whole situation. But I am going to save this conversation for Jay-Z. Jay-Z, you're watching. I know you're watching because you got people calling me. Stop having people call me. You can call me yourself. You know how to get my number. You know you got people calling me. Call me yourself, because this right here is going to go viral. The way my job works on the internet, everybody's going to be clipping and sharing on TikTok. Watch this.
Prince's final social media post wasn't just a cryptic warning, it was a death sentence in plain sight. The message hit hard, and those he was calling out. They knew exactly what he meant, and they weren't happy about it. In the months leading up to his shocking 2016 passing, Prince had reportedly stumbled upon something dark. Something that tied straight into the billion-dollar empire of Jay-Z and Beyoncé. Sources close to him say he had discovered a trail of manipulation and deceit buried deep inside the business network connected to their streaming platform, Tidal. Word is, Prince was preparing to expose how the empire was allegedly built on fake deals, silenced voices, and contracts designed to trap artists long after they were gone. Just 6 days after dropping hints online that his fans weren't safe, the legend who fought for every musician's right to freedom was suddenly gone. But the story didn't die with him. It only grew louder.
And it was pretty much said like, Jay doesn't really want awards. Well, he go to the Grammys.
Right.
He you know, come into the Black-owned spaces. Let's figure out how to work together so that way we have the relationship when it matters, not when it's convenient for you and your image. Because they all call us when the story.
Fast forward to July 2024, and the Prince estate dropped explosive court filings accusing Tidal and Roc Nation of falsifying and backdating legal documents to snatch control of more than 500 of his songs. That's not just paperwork. It's a massive grab for his legacy.
That major documentary comes out on Diddy, then you're going to start to hear more and more about Jay-Z and his nefarious.
What these filings describe isn't a simple licensing squabble. It's something far darker. The estate claims it's a full-on criminal operation, a scheme designed to rewrite music history, forge ownership records, and cash in on a man's art while the world was still mourning him. The very platform that swore it would protect artists might have used his death as a golden ticket to take everything he left behind.
This is what I look for. When I see a success, I'm looking for anything
to say that they didn't do it on their own?
Detain it.
The irony cuts deep, because just a year before everything unraveled, Prince was one of Tidal's biggest supporters. Back in 2015, he openly praised Jay-Z's platform, calling it a safe haven for real musicians who poured their soul into their craft. At that moment, he believed Tidal was the antidote to the corporate machine that had long exploited artists. He thought Jay-Z was standing shoulder to shoulder with him, fighting the same battle he had been waging since the 1990s, back when he famously scrawled "slave" across his face to protest against the stranglehold of record label contracts. But now, insiders claim that very trust might have been turned against him. What once looked like a partnership built on respect may have been a setup from the start.
Has done things and allegedly participated in a lot of things that the public would not be happy to.
At the center of this legal storm sits one document, the so-called equity term sheet. Tidal insists this paper gave them permanent control over hundreds of Prince's recordings. But here's where things get suspicious. Prince's former representative, Phaedra Ellis Lampkins, told investigators that the company's version of the agreement doesn't match her records or any of her communications during those talks. That's a huge red flag. The Prince estate's lawyers are now claiming that the document was fabricated and backdated to July 2015, months before Prince's passing, to make it look legitimate. And if that turns out to be true, then Tidal's entire claim of ownership crumbles in one hit.
See, I think I sent you that thing with Jazz. Jazz went in when they was going at it on Jay. But you look at the Jazz now, it's like he's on eggshells now. Like something happened. Like this can stop your career or whatever you're doing. This is what I try to tell dudes, yo, whatever God got for you, I don't give a damn billionaire, whoever, this, that, and the third. You can't stop.
But that leads to the biggest question of all. If Prince never signed those papers, then who did? Behind that mystery lurks something far more sinister. A cover-up that could have been orchestrated to secure a billion-dollar catalog by any means necessary.
It's not just karma, that's just the forces of nature on how things work. You ruin people's lives, you do harmful things, and who's to say that he might ever pay that price? Who's to say he even done anything wrong to anybody else in his eyes? To me, that's not even the same person. That's someone else. It's not the Sean, the Jay.
And it didn't stop there. After Prince's death in April 2016, Tidal suddenly began streaming everything. His early hits, his rare vault tracks, even unreleased material. According to filings from NPG Records, none of this was authorized. The company claims Tidal rushed to upload the catalog before anyone could react. That gamble might have actually worked, at least for a while.
So, as we look at Jay-Z's life, he's a billionaire, married to Beyonce. Do you feel like he's truly reaped the karma of all his actions?
Where the karma is at?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well.
Or do you feel like he ever will?
I feel like if you done people wrong, you know you done people.
Prince's music flooded Tidal's platform for months, racking up millions in revenue, all while his own heirs were locked out, struggling just to access his accounts. It's almost like his legacy was being sold right under his family's nose. Then came Jay-Z's move. The following year, he dropped his album 444, and on the track Caught Their Eyes, he slid in lyrics that many believed were aimed straight at the controversy. Without mentioning names, Jay-Z positioned himself as Prince's closest confidant, saying they spoke eye to eye, and that he alone understood Prince's real intentions. To the public, it sounded like loyalty. But to the Prince estate, it felt like damage control. A calculated way to rewrite the story before the truth fully came out.
And then you have celebrities like a Jay-Z. And this is where I think the whole fallout with the Beyonce, she's just kind of in the crosshairs because of all of what's going on in the media with respect to Jay-Z and stuff. But with Jay, when he complained at the Grammys about the Grammys not giving Beyonce Artist of the Year, when she's the most decorated Grammy-winning artist ever, we invited him to be honored at our award show.
The estate's court filings, those same ones Jay-Z brushed off as greed, painted a very different picture. They exposed glaring inconsistencies between the alleged agreement and every verified piece of Prince's own communication records. Nothing matched up. And when you line up those lyrics against the timeline of the lawsuit, it almost reads less like a tribute and more like a taunt. Standing firm in the middle of all that backlash was Londell McMillan, Prince's longtime lawyer, and the very man Jay-Z accused of seeing green through purple eyes. McMillan wasn't having it. He fired back publicly, reminding everyone that he was the one who stood by Prince during his fiercest battles. He's the reason Prince wiped the word slave off his face after finally freeing himself from label control. McMillan didn't hold back either. He said Jay-Z's companies were trying to own what Prince fought his whole life to protect, the right to control how his music was shared with the world. And according to him and the estate, there was never any permanent contract giving Tidal full rights, only a temporary streaming deal for one album. Behind all these back and forth statements and legal shots, there's a shadowy rumor. One that Prince himself reportedly whispered to his closest confidants just months before his passing. Early in 2016, he told friends he was growing afraid that powerful figures in the music industry were using the illusion of creative freedom as a trap, a way to pull artists into contracts they could never escape. He spoke about private gatherings where new artists were allegedly pressured to sign away their publishing rights or forced to prove loyalty in unsettling ways. It sounded wild at the time, but now, it sounds almost prophetic. According to those who heard him, some of the names Prince warned about were connected to the same tight-knit circle that ran Tidal. Whether those claims can ever be proven or not, they've cast a haunting new light on the eerie secrecy that surrounded his final months. Fast forward to July 2024, when the Prince estate dropped that massive lawsuit, and suddenly, those old fears don't seem so far-fetched. Among the documents subpoenaed are internal communications between Tidal executives, Roc Nation lawyers, and Prince's former representative, Ellis Lampkins. But here's the kicker. Those messages are being kept hidden. The defendants are refusing to release them, citing something called a common interest doctrine. Now, legal experts are raising eyebrows because that term is usually used when parties are sharing a joint defense, not when they're dealing with a simple business contract. That little detail suggests that whatever's being withheld could actually expose coordination between multiple companies, possibly even an effort to forge Prince's signature after his death. That's a chilling thought. The Prince estate believes those secret communications are the smoking gun, the final proof that something much bigger was going on behind closed doors. Meanwhile, Jay-Z's team has tried to spin the story in a different direction, claiming that Prince personally wanted his music to remain with Tidal. But that version doesn't fully hold up either. Multiple insiders have said that by late 2015, Prince's trust in the partnership had already started to crumble after he discovered that Tidal had uploaded more songs than they were ever authorized to share. Those close to Prince say that by early 2016, he felt betrayed, trapped, and deeply paranoid about the people circling him. The trust was gone, and the walls were closing in. He had already begun preparing legal action when, on April 15, 2016, he posted that chilling message, "Just when you thought you were safe." It sent shivers through his fan base. But no one could have guessed what would happen next. Only 6 days later, devastating news broke from Minneapolis. Prince had been found unresponsive inside an elevator at his beloved Paisley Park estate. Officials quickly labeled it an accidental overdose of prescribed medication, but many in his inner circle never bought that story. They remembered how Prince had recently installed new security cameras, fired several employees he believed were leaking secrets, and even told friends that the elevator symbolized dark forces within the industry. He was scared, but he wasn't giving up. So when Jay-Z later dropped the lyric, "We're never gonna let the elevator take him down," some fans and insiders couldn't shake the feeling that he knew exactly what that elevator symbolized to Prince. To them, it sounded less like tribute, and more like a quiet nod to a truth too dangerous to say out loud. Since his passing, the storm hasn't settled. If anything, it's gotten worse. The Prince estate continues to accuse Tidal of profiting off his catalog long after they were ordered to take it down. And it's not just about Prince anymore. New whistleblowers have stepped up, claiming that Tidal's internal accounting system was allegedly hiding unpaid royalties from other artists too. That's a serious accusation that could rock the entire streaming world. These new revelations only prove what Prince had been warning for years: that streaming platforms were becoming the new gatekeepers, controlling artists through contracts disguised as freedom. The idea of artist ownership that everyone was sold, he believed it was just another way to keep creators chained to powerful executives in slick suits. And now the irony is brutal. Jay-Z, once celebrated as the rebel businessman fighting for fairness, is being painted in legal filings as the very kind of music mogul Prince spent his life trying to escape. The irony hits hard, because for a man who built his empire on independence, being accused of forging deals to snatch another artist's masters cuts deep. It strikes at the heart of everything Jay-Z once claimed to represent. The man who sold freedom as a brand now stands accused of trying to control the very kind of creative power he once said he fought for. That's wild. And then there's the biggest question hanging over everything. Why were these alleged fake documents so important to keep buried? People close to the Prince estate believe it comes down to money. Massive money. They claim the real prize wasn't just the songs the world already knows, but Prince's secret vault, rumored to hold thousands of unreleased tracks. Controlling that kind of archive could make Tidal relevant again, especially now when its market share has been slipping hard. For Jay-Z and Beyoncé, whose billion-dollar empire leans heavily on streaming and publishing, losing access to that catalog would be a brutal financial hit. The motive couldn't be clearer. But here's where it turns from shady business to straight-up eerie. When people look back at Prince's final digital traces, a pattern started to emerge. Something way darker than a contract dispute. In his last few weeks, Prince became more secretive, isolated, and suspicious. He canceled public appearances without explanation, sent cryptic messages about energy vampires, and hinted at battles too dangerous to talk about openly. It was as if he knew his time was running out. The question now is, was his fear real, or was someone playing on it? Nobody can say for sure, but one thing is certain. That haunting message he posted wasn't just poetic. It was a warning, one that's starting to look like hard evidence. And as the 2024 court filings keep digging deeper, more disturbing details keep surfacing. Internal memos, missing signatures, unexplained transfers, all linking back to Tidal's leadership. Each new document paints a clearer picture of what might have really been going on. A battle that was never just about music rights, but about power, control, and ownership of legacies that were never supposed to be taken. At its core, this isn't just about music. It's about truth itself. Prince's final message wasn't a jab at one company or one artist. It was a warning about what happens when creative independence becomes dangerous to an empire built entirely on control and ownership. He was sounding the alarm on a system that punishes those who dare to step outside the lines. And when you start connecting the dots between that message and his sudden shocking death inside Paisley Park, one haunting question still refuses to fade. Was Prince's silence the price he paid for uncovering too much? Or was it the beginning of a reckoning that's still unfolding today? His death didn't just take his voice, it wiped out the trail of evidence. And when you look at who benefited most, it points right back to the same people he was reportedly investigating in his final weeks. Soon after his passing, Jay-Z's legal team pulled a quiet but powerful move. They invoked the Common Interest Doctrine, a legal shield that let them withhold internal emails between Tidal, Roc Nation, and Phaedra Ellis-Lampkins, Prince's former representative. On paper, it looked routine, just a bit of legal procedure. But behind closed doors, it worked like a fortress. That move effectively locked away every communication that could have exposed how those contracts were allegedly forged. The estate couldn't see them, the public couldn't see them, and since then, no one outside Jay-Z's inner circle has ever laid eyes on those messages again. What's wild is that the Common Interest Doctrine was originally meant to protect co-defendants sharing a single legal defense, but in this case, it became a wall of secrecy. Industry insiders have whispered for years that those missing emails could have revealed exactly who wrote the mysterious equity term sheet, the document sitting at the very center of the alleged forgery. Without access to them, the Prince estate's legal team was left half-blind, forced to rely on scattered evidence, while Jay-Z's lawyers repeated the same script. Everything was authorized by Prince himself. It was the perfect strategy. Delay, deny, and drown the truth in red tape until the world simply stopped paying attention. But Lawdell McMillan wasn't about to let that happen. As Prince's longtime attorney and one of the few people who actually knew what the star agreed to before his passing, he became a key witness in the entire case. He was also the same man Jay-Z publicly targeted in the song Caught Their Eyes, accusing him of greed and betrayal. That move didn't just sting, it looked calculated. McMillan hit back hard, giving interviews to Billboard and other outlets where he called Jay-Z's story a flat-out lie. He reminded everyone that he was the one who helped Prince break free from the shackles of label control, the very system Tidal claimed to be fighting against. To many observers, Jay-Z's shots at McMillan weren't personal, they were strategic. If they could smear the messenger, they could bury the message before it ever reached the courtroom. And just like that, McMillan's warnings started coming true. By late 2017, the estate's legal team announced that they had recovered internal emails appearing to prove that Tidal's contracts had, in fact, been backdated. It was the breakthrough they'd been waiting for. Finally, hard evidence that could change everything. But before those files could even be reviewed by court experts, disaster struck. The estate's servers were hacked, wiping out years of correspondence, including those explosive attachments. Investigators couldn't pinpoint who was responsible, but the timing was impossible to ignore. The breach happened the very same week that Roc Nation's lawyers filed motions to block any further document requests. Too convenient? Absolutely. According to one insider who's familiar with the case, the hack wasn't just a random act of cybercrime. It was digital sabotage disguised as coincidence. And it didn't stop there. Not even close. In the years that followed, whispers started turning into patterns. Other estates, smaller, quieter ones without Prince's massive global spotlight, began to notice the same suspicious irregularities popping up in their archives. Former reps for lesser-known soul and R&B artists came forward, telling reporters they'd uncovered duplicate contracts that looked eerily similar to the disputed title documents. Same formatting, same language, even the same layout down to the fine print. It was too precise to be coincidence. In several of these cases, the signatures didn't line up. They were inconsistent, mismatched, or appeared to have been copied and pasted from older agreements. One music lawyer described the pattern as uncanny. The more investigators compared the paperwork, the clearer it became. Posthumous catalog control, ownership of deceased or inactive artists' work, was quietly shifting toward the same streaming entity every single time. And it was all happening under the slick branding of artist empowerment and exclusive partnerships. When you trace the timeline, it starts looking like a blueprint. A model Tidal was allegedly perfecting. The idea was simple but sinister. Secure rights to music catalogs from artists who could no longer fight back, then claim those deals were signed while they were still alive. It created the illusion of legitimacy, but in reality, it was turning priceless creative legacies into digital property controlled by a few powerful hands. The smaller estates never stood a chance. Without the money or influence to fight in court, many were forced into silence. And as always, the media cycle moved on fast. Before most of these cases ever saw the light of day, but the few who dared to speak up paid the price. Lawdell McMillan, already painted as the villain in Jay-Z's narrative, saw his reputation shredded in the press, buried under headlines portraying him as greedy or unreliable. And Ellis Lampkins, who had initially cooperated with Prince's family, suddenly vanished from the public eye altogether. Friends say she confided that she'd received legal pressure from multiple sides and was told to keep quiet. As the years rolled on, the silence surrounding those vanished files only grew heavier. Every attempt to revisit Prince's case was met with fresh roadblocks. Missing documents, sealed court orders, and sudden technical issues that conveniently erased entire email trails. Legal experts who tried to dig deeper described it as hitting a digital wall built by people with power and precision. Meanwhile, whispers in the industry kept spreading. Claims that what happened to Prince wasn't isolated, but part of a much larger playbook. Some insiders said there were unofficial meetings between executives from major streaming companies, all discussing ways to quietly consolidate control over old catalogs before AI-driven music rights made them more valuable than ever. It wasn't just about owning the music anymore. It was about owning the data, the sound, the voice, and the influence tied to those legacies. According to a former financial auditor connected to a competing label, certain shell companies began popping up in Delaware and Luxembourg around that same time, registered under vague names but linked to lawyers previously employed by Roc Nation and Tidal. The timing? Suspiciously aligned with the 2024 court filings. These entities were allegedly used to funnel royalties and mask ownership transfers, creating a maze so dense it would take years to untangle. What's even more disturbing is that some of Prince's unreleased recordings, songs believed to be locked away in his vault, allegedly surfaced in private music tech demos shown to investors between 2021 and 2023. No official permission, no estate approval, just leaked sound bites quietly traded behind closed doors like digital gold. And yet, no one has publicly claimed responsibility for how those files were accessed or distributed. Even some members of Prince's own estate started backing away from the fight, too scared to keep pushing against the pressure building behind the scenes. The legal fees were skyrocketing, and according to insiders, quiet warnings were being passed around the industry. Drop it or face the consequences. By the time the first court hearings wrapped up, the story had flipped completely. Suddenly, Jay-Z was being portrayed as the misunderstood genius, the visionary businessman unfairly targeted by bitter heirs. Meanwhile, Prince's defenders were painted as greedy opportunists chasing headlines. It was the perfect PR reversal, crafted to make truth look like slander and silence look like professionalism. But that wasn't the end. Because soon, new whispers started connecting the same shady business tactics to other major artists. An ex-associate from Roc Nation even told a podcast in 2023 that similar contract adjustments had allegedly been used while negotiating streaming rights for several other valuable catalogs, some belonging to artists who had died unexpectedly. Chilling, right? Now, none of those claims have been legally proven, but the patterns? They're hard to ignore. Every detail lines up almost exactly with what Prince's estate uncovered years before. One attorney who's worked close to the matter revealed that whenever an artist's estate began asking questions about altered paperwork, they always slammed into the same wall. The common interest doctrine, that same legal shield that hid Prince's truth, was now being used again and again to block access, delay discovery, and protect whoever was really pulling the strings. And when you zoom out, the picture gets even darker. The Jay-Z and Beyoncé empire runs on total image control. Nothing gets out that they don't approve. Every rumor is met with a polished counter-narrative. Every controversy spun into a redemption arc. When artists like Jaguar Wright publicly accused Jay-Z of predatory control and manipulation behind the scenes, she was instantly branded as unstable and dismissed. When songwriter Tiffany Red came forward claiming Beyoncé's camp used NDAS to silence creators, the story was buried before it could trend. The media barely blinked, like they were told not to. But now, looking back with everything we've learned about what happened to Prince, those old stories don't sound like random gossip anymore. They sound like pieces of a bigger puzzle, a pattern built to protect power, control narratives, and erase anyone brave enough to speak up. We've seen it all play out. The court filings that mysteriously stall, the missing evidence that vanishes without a trace, and the sudden silence of key witnesses who once swore they'd never back down. Every single thread leads back to the same place. A streaming company that claimed to fight for freedom, but ended up owning the very people it said it would protect. And behind that company, a powerhouse couple whose empire depends on keeping those uncomfortable questions buried deep. As the estate's ongoing lawsuits drag through the courts, one thing's impossible to ignore: how much has disappeared. Emails mysteriously deleted, witnesses retracting statements, entire archives accidentally corrupted. It's like the truth is being erased piece by piece. And maybe that's why people in the industry still whisper about what Prince might have uncovered in those final weeks. He wasn't just fighting for his catalog. He was exposing a system designed to survive off the silence of its victims. The files that vanished could have told the full story, but someone made sure the world would never see them. And now, every time another artist's estate reports missing paperwork, altered contracts, or unexpected rights transfers, we have to ask the same haunting question: whose fingerprints are really on it? Prince wasn't the first artist Jay-Z allegedly targeted. And let's be honest, he won't be the last. This machine runs on manipulation, intimidation, and image control. The real question is, how many careers have been dismantled in the name of business? And how many more will vanish before someone finally stops it? Tell me what you think. Do you believe this was all coincidence, or the price of challenging power at the highest level? Drop your thoughts below in the comments, because this story is far from over. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and hit that bell. It helps me a lot and keeps the truth alive. Until next time, stay curious, stay awake, and remember, in the music world, the loudest silence hides the darkest truth.